Have you ever wondered how guns, meant to be safely locked away in military arsenals, so easily end up on our streets in the hands of criminals or terrorists? Do you think illegal weapons are just a plot device in movies? Think again. Because right now, a vast, complex, and incredibly dangerous network of arms trafficking is operating underground, funneling millions of guns, ammunition, and even missiles onto the black market. It's not just about clandestine shipments across borders. It's a chaotic tapestry of corruption, conflict, and cutting-edge technology. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Please comment what you want to suggest to me. That will be the motivation for me to make videos every day. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the topic. Black firepower. The untold story of global arms trafficking. This isn't a science fiction story. This is reality happening every single day. Imagine a young man named Avi Damon, convicted of a mass shooting on a US street. But what's even more shocking than the violence itself is the gun he used, a Beretta M9, which should have been safely stored in an armory at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So how did a military-grade weapon fall into the hands of a killer? This case is just one drop in the ocean of a global problem threatening peace and security worldwide: arms trafficking. When reporters from the Associated Press launched their investigation, the results they published sent shockwaves through the public. They exposed a harsh truth. Military armories are one of the most common sources of illicit firearms today. Can you believe it? The military, meant to protect security, inadvertently becomes a supplier for some of the most dangerous criminals. Why this terrifying paradox? Join us as we pull back the curtain on this deadly industry. 1. Deadly loopholes in military arsenals. The first and most obvious reason is the immense scale and diversity within military armories. An average nation can possess dozens, even hundreds of weapons depots, storing everything from personal firearms, ammunition, and grenades to heavy machine guns and anti-aircraft missile systems. We're talking about millions, even billions of weapons. With such colossal numbers, even a tiny fraction, less than 1% lost, is enough to supply criminal gangs or rebel forces with a significant arsenal. Unbelievable, isn't it? Furthermore, managing such a large-scale arsenal requires extremely rigorous and continuous inventory and oversight. But this is something not every nation can afford to implement, especially those in conflict. Look at El Salvador. The civil war there in the late 20th century led to an explosion in the number of weapons in the region. Even today, tens of thousands of M16 rifles and hundreds of thousands of M67 grenades, supplied by the United States to the Salvadoran government, are still circulating and being used by the country's two largest gangs. Or in Mozambique, the prolonged civil war after independence also led to a flood of weapons into the nation. Despite numerous disarmament phases, guns once used in political conflicts continue to infiltrate the illicit market. This situation demonstrates that when management mechanisms are weak, weapons can easily escape state control and become tools for crime. And in Somalia, a sea smuggling route for weapons originating from Iran via Yemen has been diverted, leading weapons into the hands of Islamist militant groups like Al-Shabaab and the regional IS affiliate. This route not only supplies weapons to terrorist groups, but also has broader consequences for the entire Horn of Africa region, further complicating the conflict situation. This highlights that a lack of coordination and weak border control capabilities are also crucial factors, facilitating the proliferation of illicit arms. 2. The nexus of corruption and super profits. The next reason, and perhaps the most frightening, is corruption within military and security circles. It's bitter to admit that in many cases, it's military officers, soldiers, or armory personnel themselves who facilitate these smuggling operations. Why would they do this? The answer lies in the super profits that the black market for guns offers. The price of a gun on the black market can vary wildly, depending on the distance between the source and the consumer, the legality of the weapon in that region, its technical specifications, and its condition. This is truly a hyper-profitable business. Consider this example. An assault rifle purchased in the United States might cost 500 to 600 euros, but when it reaches northern Mexico, the price can skyrocket to 1,200 to 1,600 euros, and if it continues to be transported southward, that figure can jump to 2,000 to 4,000 euros. This immense price difference has made it impossible for many officers to resist the temptation, leading to the hollowing out of armories. Such operations are often highly sophisticated, involving falsified records, swapping out damaged equipment, or simply reporting losses due to accidents during transport or training. A prime example can be seen right in Ukraine, where the SBU security agency recently announced they uncovered corruption in military arms procurement totaling approximately $40 million. That's a truly staggering figure. Or in Mali, since 2016, armed groups there have continuously expanded alongside the growth of the illegal arms market. Domestic arsenals are constantly replenished through military supplies or from corrupt elements within the armed forces. More alarmingly, in South Africa, from 2002 to 2019, over 26,000 police-issued firearms were reported lost or stolen. The actual number could be even higher due to weak reporting systems. In June 2016, a high-ranking officer in the South African police admitted to participating in a national network that supplied over 2,400 firearms, 900 of which were linked to over 1,000 murders. This network operated silently for 8 years before being discovered. These stories aren't just dry statistics. They are vivid evidence of the corruption and decay within the very institutions meant to protect security, turning them from guardians into facilitators of evil. 3. Conflict in technology, amplifying factors. Furthermore, armed conflicts and government collapses are direct causes of mass weapon loss. Modern history has witnessed countless instances of military arsenals being plundered whenever a political upheaval occurs. The most prominent example is the collapse of the Libyan government in 2011, which saw the country's massive military arsenal, including infantry weapons, man-portable air defense missiles, and ammunition, fall into the hands of rebel groups and smugglers in just a few weeks. These weapons not only destabilized Libya internally, but were also trafficked to neighboring regions like Mali, Chad, and even as far as Syria and other parts of the Middle East. Another case is after the US withdrew its troops from Afghanistan in 2021. Billions of dollars worth of equipment left behind, including rifles, armored vehicles, and helicopters, largely fell into the hands of the Taliban and other armed forces, raising global concern. This is a clear demonstration of how security loopholes created by conflict can become conduits for rampant arms trafficking. And what's even more worrying is the advancement of technology. Many countries still use manual record-keeping methods to manage armories, instead of advanced electronic systems that could alert to losses or detect anomalies. These loopholes make tampering with records, forging documents, or committing fraud much easier. For example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's estimated that since 2006, at least 9 weapon thefts have occurred from armed forces storage facilities. However, a new and rapidly growing threat comes from 3D printing technology. This technique allows criminals to create complete firearms that can be assembled right in their own homes. In the past 3 years, The threat of extremists and terrorists using 3D printing to manufacture weapons has shifted from hypothetical to reality. Notably, all 9 recorded incidents in Europe and Australia occurred in countries with relatively strict gun laws. This sudden increase reveals a future where 3D printed weapon manufacturing becomes commonplace, making control even more challenging. 4. Consequences and solutions towards a safer world. So what have been the impacts of arms trafficking? It not only escalates existing conflicts, but also makes confrontations between criminal organizations more dangerous, expanding their scope of operations and facilitating a range of other illicit activities such as kidnapping, extortion, armed robbery, assassinations, and poaching. In Mozambique, kidnappings have significantly increased since 2008, carried out by heavily armed groups. Alarmingly, police and military have close ties to these gangs, not only supplying them with weapons, but also providing high-level protection. Even more, the proliferation of firearms has led to an increase in elephant poaching, with an average of 360 elephants killed each year, primarily by individuals using weapons legally imported for state security forces. Deadly violence has also soared. In 2017, 54% of homicides worldwide involved the use of firearms. By 2020, Latin America became one of the most heavily affected regions by illicit arms trafficking, with gun-related homicides skyrocketing in Mexico from 15% before 2000 to 70% by 2021. Arms trafficking not only impacts security, but also has widespread negative consequences for social and economic life. Increased instability reduces international investor confidence, causing a sharp decline in foreign direct investment, FDI. In El Salvador, FDI decreased by nearly 40% between 2015 and 2020 alone, largely due to security concerns. Communities suffer immense losses in both human lives and economic well-being, while trust among population groups is severely eroded. Governments are forced to spend more on defense and internal security budgets, creating a huge burden for developing nations. So, how can we curb arms trafficking and mitigate its negative impacts? This is a huge challenge, requiring cooperation between public and private sectors, along with control at multiple stages of the supply chain. One of the most important solutions is to establish a global gun registry, potentially based on blockchain technology, to store information on all legally manufactured firearms, including licenses and sales history. Holding individuals accountable for any actions that lead to weapon loss, along with strengthening integrity measures in existing armory management, is absolutely crucial. Furthermore, governments need to step up information sharing on legal weapons, seized weapons, and the activities of smuggling networks. And last, but certainly not least, is the need for greater attention to 3D printing technology. This is a golden opportunity to control it by deploying software capable of identifying gun design files, helping to curb the proliferation of homemade or modified weapons. In summary, arms trafficking is not just a story of clandestine shipments across borders. Behind every gun, every crate of ammunition, lies a sophisticated network of organized crime, the complicity of those who exploit the law, and cold calculations that transcend moral boundaries. The fight against arms trafficking cannot be the exclusive battle of any single nation. To sever the supply of illicit weapons, it requires not only the force of law, but also the collective will of the entire global community. What's the key takeaway here? As long as there is demand and conflict, arms trafficking will persist. But we can absolutely mitigate its impact by strengthening international cooperation, improving management systems, and remaining vigilant against emerging threats. A safer world is not a distant dream. It is a goal we must pursue together.